When the nicholsoniae New Guinea Ghost first caught my eye, this plant was priced at $400 for one node and 2 leaves. Hey guys, it's Dave, and today I want to present to you the New Guinea Ghost. As I mentioned, this plant had one time been $400. 2 leaves, 1 node. Just imagine that. Oops. Just imagine that. I did not pay $400 for 1 node and 2 leaves of this plant. I paid $20 for a couple of nodes and maybe 4 leaves. It was in a little plastic cup. I think they're shot glasses for those who measure alcohol. I guess some people do that. But a tiny plant that I almost killed. I underwatered it. One, it was a starter plant coming out of sphagnum moss. And then 2, I kind of treated it immediately like I would a mature plant, which is a mistake. 3, this is a very, very thirsty plant. So today I thought I would bring you along with me. Rather than just show the plant and tell you the care, I'm going to show you the plant and do the care. And it's a little bit like I did with the sunrise that I just did. The question is, whatever happened to this plant? Are people still talking about it? Is it still popular? Is it still worth buying? I got it very cheap from a friend. I don't think they're that cheap for the normal consumer or the average consumer, or, oh yeah, I'm the way above average consumer. That's not what I meant. But I think you'll probably have to mail order this. I don't think your local plant shop is going to have it. But they're available and they're not too expensive. I have said in other videos that you may or may not have seen, if my budget was $40, I would walk right past the big box stores, you know, and getting 2 baskets of whatever plant. I would go and get 1 plant that I really want. And especially as I have a much larger collection than many people do. Maybe not you, but call it the average Lowe's shopper. It's more difficult to find a plant that I would want to make space for, if that makes sense. So the journey of this plant was the 2-ounce shot glass that I got it in, and then a 2-inch plastic pot, which it very quickly outgrew, and then this pot, which is a shallow 4 1/4 inch maybe. I did that both to give it room for the root ball that had already grown, and it has more surface area to dry more quickly. So that was my reasoning here. It is thirsty all the time. It's not the crisis it was when it was very young. The leaves got very, very wrinkly when it was little, and the roots were not in good shape. So essentially I had to start it over. And I would like to avoid that. It's also flopsy-mopsy here on this. It was growing in the tent over the winter, even though this is a very cool growing plant, and it needs, pardon me, my allergies are going crazy right now. I don't know if any of you are allergy sufferers, but I'll try to make sense throughout this video. But it only requires about 40% humidity, which still means I would have to run humidifiers during the winter because it gets so incredibly dry in here. But this is one that most people are going to be able to grow in their home under natural ambient conditions. And if you give it enough light, it takes on a beautiful kind of lavender purple hue. I really like this minty color that I was showing you when we opened up. I think that's just gorgeous, and I'm happy with this myself. And oh, I should have mentioned this was discovered by Natalie Simonson, who is the very famous Swedish Hoya collector, explorer, all around great human being, I imagine. So she found this in Papua New Guinea. I don't know what year. I assume it was relatively recently since it just started coming up on the market, but I don't know for sure. Okay, for all of you saw me in the sunrise video, I was using a kitchen butter knife. My wife has not seen that video yet, so I'm still good. If I have to go incognito for a little while, you'll know why. Anyway, let's get to it. Enough silliness from me. I just watered this yesterday, and it's already quite dry. This is at the bottom of the tent on the ground, so it's not directly under a fan. This is all root ball. So yes, this needed to be done for sure. And as usual, every plant that I love and I'm going to keep for myself, I grow in terracotta because that works really well for me. And so I don't worry about if it works well for somebody else because I don't care how it works for somebody else. I'm growing this in my house and I've had great luck. This looks good. Got some good roots. You know, a comment I often see or read is that Hoya love to be root bound, and no plant loves to be root bound. Root bound is a very specific thing, and that's essentially it cannot draw moisture and nutrients. But this is pretty solid. I'm not going to tear it apart. I was just checking. But I would say, more accurately, I like how Rick Moreira, the great Hoya grower and collector from Florida, describes it as it doesn't need much room in the pot. And I think that's a better description for this plant. Now the question is, why don't I have all the supplies I need before I hit record? And we're back with my favorite, my bonsai scissors. And I'm going to use one of the wire tower trellises, extra long, because once this plant gets going, it's a really great grower, and I'm not going to want to have to put in a new trellis. And it's probably, and maybe in the winter it'll go back in the tent on the ground, but it's not going to have to fit in between a shelf or anything. It's going to be on a freestanding table. So I'm going to use this long one. If you would like to see how I made this, it is a recent video. I will link it. That was by a viewer request that I made that, and it has proven to be by far my most popular video. So thank you for the suggestion, and I'm glad that a lot of you took some value out of that. They're really, really easy to make. So the question is, what size pot? So this is a normal 4-inch pot, which would definitely work. This is a little bit larger, probably more like 4 1/4, 4 1/2. These Italian ones from Lowe's that I really like also. Because they don't slope down very much, they hold a much larger volume of substrate, so I'm not going to use that one. This should be fine. I make a very simple do-it-yourself mixture. This is just, there's a tiny bit of luck in here, but this is primarily number 3 perlite, which is not the biggest you can buy, but it's pretty big. I don't know if you can see that or not. Cocoa chunks, these smaller ones, and then enough cocoa coir to bind it, and that's it. I can't afford to buy boutique substrates, you know, the ones they sell by 4 quarts or whatever for far more money than I would ever spend, because I have just way too many plants. So I'm going to start it. And by the way, so what I do is I put just some solid chunks at the bottom, knowing that the cocoa coir is going to sift down. And I don't want it to kind of become a solid chunk that the rather delicate roots will have trouble penetrating. I run into trouble with that, where a plant is just not doing well, and I unpot it, and it's simply just, you know, this much solid cocoa coir. That happened more with peat, it seems like, which I haven't used in a long time. So this substance is completely inert, meaning there's no nutritional value at all in it. And I use the Michigan State University Orchid Fertilizer. And I have been doing that for a year and am very, very happy with the results of that. Just being really gentle and delicate here. There we go. So, a nice thing about a substrate that is this chunky is that you can really fill it up like I do. And when I water it, and usually I take it to the sink anyway, but water doesn't just careen off the top and flood whatever's underneath it. It just pours right through. And I've made many batches of this. It is so simple, it's not a ton of ingredients, and it works great. So in my houseplant care, I try to do the most with the least. So if I can do something with 3 ingredients rather than 5 or 6, I'm gonna do that. If I can do it with 2 fertilizers, the other fertilizer I use is GT Australia Foliage Focus, I'm gonna do that. And that's not to say that supplements aren't useful or necessary in some cases to treat this or that, but as just day-to-day, I don't do it. So these are sharp, so I'm going to try to pay attention to what I'm doing here and see how much of this plant I can kind of gently scoop through here. Just easy does it there. One there. I always double check to make sure I'm not just about to stab something and it looks good. If you feel a lot of resistance on this, don't push down really hard because you'll just bend the tines and it'll have to come out. You may have to kind of try to move some big chunks out of the way to get it down a little bit further. But this looks pretty solid. I'm going to top it off just a little bit more like that. And then we have, let's see. So a lot of this growth came on over the winter. And while the tent is very humid, it is not very warm over the winter. 72 for high and then 60 degrees at night. So it's not the heat that did it. So where the internodal spacing here started getting really long because it didn't have anything to climb, I'm going to decide how much of this plant I want on the trellis. I think I want at least this much. These are sanitized, by the way, with hydrogen peroxide already. Took the time to do that. So that is a good one. And ask me if I have my orchid clips. Did I know I was filming a video today? Okay, we're back. And before I forget to tell you, had I not put this on a bamboo stake, if I had just had it trailing, the weight of this vine or whatever it is that tells the plant to put out new growth, I would have started new growth points and new vines. So that's another way to do it if you don't want to propagate the plant to fill it out. But I'm good with this. So I'll just thread this, I'll put some leaves inside of our cage here. Gently, do this gently, because the vines, while pretty flexible, will break. And if you do that, it's not the end of the world, but it will, sometimes they heal and it goes on, the plant goes on just fine. Sometimes it heals and it continues to grow vine, but I've seen it do that for a long time and not put any new leaves on. So that's not ideal for me. Bare vine is not ideal for me. And this vine is a new one in the tent. And it has kind of a large internodal there, which I'm going to leave. It's got a huge one here, and some larger ones up there. Because this plant grows so quickly once established like this one is now, I'm going to, let me start here and see how I feel about it. I could take one more cutting off of this if I wanted to. No, this is good. This is going to look really good. So back to the topic, this plant was everywhere. Everybody wanted one of these. You know, the plant influencers, plant fluencers, what? Everybody wanted one. And I will never spend that kind of money on a plant. My God, I'm married to my first wife. I would love to keep it that way if at all possible. I don't think the butter knife is going to be the deal breaker, but a $400 baby plant, maybe, and who could blame her? Now, I don't know how many of those people grew it to its maturity or not, but as someone who has a decently sized plant, I would say, I think that's really beautiful. And, you know, this is just going to take off. I guarantee you, this is going to grow like crazy. And so are the propagations. My experience has been, hi everybody. My experience has been with these great, oh, look at that. 2 growth points on that one. And then just the one here. But anyway, these good vining plants, the propagations, sometimes grow better than the mother plant. Sometimes much better. That's not always the case. But if anybody saw my video on the Jennifer, holy cow. And I'm going to do another video on that with just that plant when I do some chore work. I'll try to keep the chore work more interesting. And I'll know if you find it interesting from the comments and from the likes. And I've gotten a few thumbs down on videos, but of course I have no idea what someone doesn't like about a video if they don't comment on it. But maybe just the cut of my jib. I mean, can't imagine that, but I guess anything's possible in this crazy old world of ours. But what I'm gonna do here, and what's nice about having this grow up is the leaves are facing the correct way as opposed to when it's upside down and the leaves turn around. It makes it a little more difficult to get into the substrate they're going to propagate in. So I will do 1 node cuttings, and this is going to be great. You can see those adventitious roots are already popping out. That's going to root in absolutely no time at all. And by the way, if you're newer to Hoya, and I know a lot of you are because I read all the comments, unlike an aroid, the Hoya roots from anywhere on that stem. Okay, the battery just died, but what I was about to say, sorry I'm having so much trouble breathing with allergies, is that you don't need to bury the node. Just get this into the substrate you prefer. There are 2 ways I prefer to do this. I really like perlite because the tension with the water really holds in Hoya. So if you're doing something small like a Mathilde or something and the internodal spacing is really tiny, it holds on to it much better. I have trouble with water propagations popping out. I don't like water propagations in general for me. I don't find that they build the strongest roots. The other way to do this one with these great roots that are already on here and ready to go is directly into the substrate that I'm going to grow it in. And there are some that do much better in terms of speed than others. This one's gonna be no problem. That's what I'm gonna do with all of them. So is this a plant that is still worth getting even though the influencers aren't talking about it anymore? 100%. This is a plant I'm always gonna have in my collection. And there are a few that I look around at and I enjoy every day that I just know I'll never be without. This is on the list. So instead of getting another pot of $20, whatever Costa Farms is selling this year, treat yourself to something really beautiful and special and easy to grow. One that you're just never gonna get tired of looking at. I'll see you real soon in the next one. Bye-bye.